Okay, so from walking the line to walking the bridge, our next speaker, DJ Forza, she's a believer that regular citizens can be diplomats and should be. That's her way of walking the walk, by walking the bridge of diplomacy. DJ volunteers for poverty, housing, and microfinance in developing nations. She's been doing these projects that you'll see, that she'll explain much better than I, in Nepal, Cambodia, India, to name only a few. She's an MBA, she has an MBA, and she's a PhD candidate. She is a Kiva Fellow, and it's Walk the Bridge, DJ Forza. DJ.
Okay. Thanks, Doug.
There's you.
Okay. Hi. That was amazing, Freddie. Thank you so much. I want to try that later after maybe some wine. I'm a little nervous about this, but it's something that it's very near and dear to my heart, so I hope that it goes okay. All right, so I want to just do a little experiment. I would like everybody to just close their eyes for a moment, take a look at the map, close your eyes. Now picture the worst place possible. Picture the place that scares you. Picture a place of poverty, of noise, of uncomfortable smells, the last place you would want to spend your vacation. And now picture telling your friends and family, your coworkers, your mother, that you want to go and spend your vacation time at this place. Some of you just had really uncomfortable conversations with your mother. Okay, open your eyes. So my story starts in beautiful Seattle, Washington, in the United States. I grew up in a very small town filled with cows and good, hardworking people and gorgeous mountains. And I dreamed of moving far away, traveling the world, meeting new people, living an exotic lifestyle, getting to know other cultures. Interestingly enough, I ended up in Geneva. A city filled with cows, beautiful mountains, good, hardworking people. But in the meantime, I've actually traveled a lot of places and met a lot of really wonderful people. But I started out as a tourist, and I'm not really proud of this, but when I first started traveling, my goal was to go to as many places as possible, to have my passport stamped, and to almost as soon as I hit the ground to start to dream about the next place. I stayed in Western-style accommodation. I mostly ate at Western-style restaurants, and I went to all the tourist traps. I love them. I love them all. But eventually, I matured, and I started to grow, and I started to take the blinders off. And my first big trip that I went outside the United States, I went by myself to China. I went in 1997 because I was always very curious about international relations and diplomacy. My grandfather collected National Geographic magazines I was obsessed with. And I had read that China was about to be transferred back to, or Hong Kong was about to be transferred back to Chinese rule from the British. And I thought, that is the most exotic place I can think of, but it's under British control, so it's going to be safe. That's what I thought. And what happened was, I ended up spending 3 weeks in mainland China, and I went to the big cities, and I saw very remote villages. I won't say small, because there's not very much small in China. And it was a huge awakening for me. I often was the first Westerner that they had ever seen. I almost always was the first Western woman. It was a huge cultural shift. People had a different idea of personal space than I did. People wanted to touch my hair a lot. People wanted to sing songs to me, which was great. And I made a lot of friends, and I had a really wonderful time. The kids loved to touch my nose and call me Big Nose. But it was a wonderful experience, and I was shocked by the poverty, and my eyes were really open to how different life was from my little small town. And seeing it and smelling it and being around it, really fundamentally changed my life. And as I said, as I started to mature in my travels, I started to seek out different travel experiences. And I eventually started to take volunteer trips as opposed to touristy trips. And I got involved in doing a number of volunteer projects in poverty housing, in microfinance, and in disaster relief, which I'll talk a little bit more. So first, I just wanted to define what I mean by citizen diplomacy, because some of you may have heard of this. We are in Switzerland, after all. And there's a lot of definitions about it. With diplomacy, really what we want to think about is that it is formal, it's structured, it is, obviously a very organized process, government to government. With citizen diplomacy, we're talking about the opposite. We're talking about informal or unregulated, very flexible, independent means of connecting person to person. And here, there's so many ways that people can engage in citizen diplomacy. There's many terms for it: soft diplomacy, baseball diplomacy. Baseball teams from the United States often go to Cuba and vice versa, even though our two countries don't have formal diplomatic ties at this point. And what I want to focus on today is, you all know how wonderful volunteering is, I hope. This is an intuitive thing. But I want to encourage you to think about volunteerism as a way to be a citizen diplomat. And the reason why I say this is that nothing I've ever found in all of my travels will bond you, open your eyes more, connect you, give you greater credibility than rolling up your sleeves, grabbing a shovel, and building something with the people that you're trying to help. So that's all great in theory, but it's actually quite complex. We have a very complex world with difficult problems, difficult challenges, and it's a great idea to want to go and help people, take 2 weeks out of your life and go build houses, but it's not so simple to be a diplomat in these circumstances, obviously. This picture is of Cyclone Fane bearing down on India as my team was there. This December 25th, we were there to build houses. And what ended up happening was we went into disaster relief mode. And instead of building houses, we ended up cleaning up after the cyclone. There was downed trees. There was a risk with the power lines. The people who were moving into their new home, we were hoping to help them with. Their existing home had dirt floor. When the rains came and the floods, snakes would come into the house, so the children were at risk. It was a very difficult and challenging time for my team and I to be living in the middle of a disaster, and we thought we were going to go, throw some bricks up and build houses. But it turned out to be an incredible experience. We shifted gears, and we ended up re-roofing a school. The school lost their roof, and putting together a playfield for the children that had been washed away in the flood. And so although we went in with one purpose in mind, we grouped together with the community. We asked them what they needed from us. Did they want us to focus on trying to finish up some houses for them? Or how could we help with this disaster? And so it was something that we partnered with the community with, and we did what they asked of us. And it was a really great experience, even though it was a little scary. And this is one of the ladies that we worked with in the community, just taking a moment in the middle of the crazy to sort of calm down and appreciate that we were all safe. Poverty housing, I just want to touch on this a little bit because it is near and dear to my heart. Poverty housing is one of the biggest problems, I believe, facing our world. Without a safe, decent, simple home, kids can't really study. Job prospects are limited if you are homeless, obviously. Poverty housing, I think if you don't know where to start, if you're interested in volunteering, is a wonderful place to start, because without a safe home, what do we really have? And this is a home that I worked, helped a family move out of in Cambodia. And they literally lived in a giant dump in Cambodia. And the way that they made their living was they scavenged for dumped shoes and did their best to repair them and then resold them. And so we worked together with the community to build them a safe, simple, decent home. This little boy, hunger and malnutrition is something you will face in your travels if you go further afield, if you start to step outside your comfort zone. And again, I come back to the home because with the home, having the employment, having the education, prospects for improving everything improve. Inequality, some of the other complex challenges that we face that volunteers need to be prepared for is the inequality of women in the world. And this little girl on my left is from Guatemala. She does not go to school. she gets firewood all day, and her family needs that in order to bake the bread that they sell in order to survive. The lady to the right also doesn't have a job. She's homeless. She's from Haiti. But they have a lot of dignity, they have a lot of pride, and they don't want a handout. They want to help themselves. So what I tell people who are interested in volunteering is look for projects that will empower those who are self-determined to get themselves out of poverty. Separate from disaster relief, which I'll touch on in a little bit, but I'm a big believer in hand-up programs as opposed to handout programs. And I'm happy to talk more about the aid situation, but I think for those of us who are not making a full-time career of humanitarian work, that we're going to just volunteer some time when we can, I really encourage you to look to hands-up programs. Xenophobia is another huge issue that you will face when you're out traveling the world, and maybe even in your own backyard. And what I'll say to this is no matter what fears that you have, no matter what place you pictured when you closed your eyes, I promise you that those people have the same fears in the reverse, and that if you can find the courage to go and build an honest relationship and listen to them and get to know how they live and what they think about and what their concerns are, and that they have regular families and lives, that I believe that these perceptions can be changed. So we've decided that we're going to volunteer. We've decided that we're going to be citizen diplomats. And what I would encourage everybody to do is look for projects that are sustainable. And that's a big buzzword these days, but what I mean by that is projects that will live on after you're gone. So there's a lot of ways to think about that, but I would just say do your research. I'm happy to provide a list of wonderful organizations. But what has happened in the past, unfortunately, is good, well-meaning people have sort of parachuted in and provided Western solutions to developing nations' problems. And that doesn't always work, right? I'll give you one quick example. In Guatemala, we were very attached to a particular community we'd been building homes in for 3 years. We wanted to do something above and beyond building homes for the neighborhood. And we, Americans, thought the great thing to do is a very dry, very poor, very impoverished part of Guatemala was we would buy them some trees, some plants, some flowers, make their neighborhood really homey and beautiful because they were such lovely people, and family and community were at the center of everything. And so we got a collection together and we went to the community leaders and we told them our great idea. And they said, no thanks, that's nice, we appreciate it, but what we really need, if you want to help us further, is we need a road. You're not here, you're only here during the dry season, but when it rains, the road goes away and we can't get to work. Kids can't get to school. The village becomes isolated. And so we built them a road. So just something to think about. There's a lot of rewards, obviously, to volunteering globally, and a lot of rewards to applying the thinking around citizen diplomacy, but a lot of it is very unexpected. This is my nephew, who went to Guatemala with me as his graduation gift, and I put him to work, and I kind of broke him a little bit, but it was great. He worked incredibly hard. But you obviously build long-term relationships, and I can tell you if you ever do go on a volunteer trip and spend even a little bit of time, if you ever went back 10, 20, 30 years later, these people will remember you. When these people have the unfortunate experience of maybe a negative media report, they're going to remember you. They're going to remember how you asked about their family, how you wanted to learn about their lives, how you took the time to come to their country, their village, their town, to help them without any expectation of anything in return. And that, I think, is what all diplomats globally are really trying to work for, winning the hearts and minds. But the only way that I've seen that you can do it is to roll up your sleeves, get dirty, and build something together. Just want to show you a quick video on working in a disaster zone. And what I'll say is, when disasters strike, it's very emotional for us. We want to respond, we want to help. And there is a new movement to allow volunteers to come into some disaster zones. But I would just caution that, some of the challenges have been in the past that volunteers have become part of the problem. They've sucked up resources that are desperately needed. They've come in, they've parachuted in without really any understanding of the real on-the-ground situation, how there's no real resources or supplies. So there are opportunities to help now when disaster strikes. But you need to do your research, and you need to find a good organization that has a screening process that has the ability to support you so that you can support the community. But when this happens, it is an incredible thing. It is one of the most rewarding things, the most challenging, the most difficult. So I'll just show you a quick film.
瓦礫の撤去、今あるものとか壊れたものを壊して、それを撤去して、全部でここの地区はですね、65-6% なんですけどね。ここどうしてもこれから秋から冬にかけて雪降ったりしますね。全然作業効率も悪くなっちゃうんで。
その処理が全部しないが終わるのは3年から4年はかかるでしょう。
It's been amazing to get to see how much cleaner the town is.
Driving by, you could actually see things growing. It's a lot of green.
当初は本当に道路も通れないぐらい瓦礫があったんですけども、日々良くなっていることをすごく実感するんですね。
80 to 90,000 photos we've hand cleaned. Giving back the fixed photos, either hand cleaned or just fixed, is the best bit. And more often than not, a lot of tears, just a lot of joy and gratitude, and it's amazing.
So we got the styrofoam and wood in one container. These other containers are bags of paper, and the other one's bags of plastic and the plastic straps that used to hold the boxes together. So we're digging all that out as best we can. Some of the fish go back out in the ocean. There's no garbage. And it smells wonderful.
The reason we're cleaning them out is that until the water and irrigation was flowing, they can't turn the water back on in any of the houses they're rebuilding. Same with businesses too. So even though it's something that seems simple, it's just digging and getting debris out of the ditch, that stuff is very important. Started out and we did 8 kilometers in 10 weeks, both sides of the street, through the sun, rain, everything. Got to meet a lot of people too. It's dirty work and it can be hard work, but it's fun.
Most of the parks and public areas in town have been used for temporary shelters. A lot of the children and families don't have places to go to get away from the disaster area. This park was underneath a meter of water.
Taking all the dirt out, replaced it. There was just too much glass and debris in it.
It's just been a wonderful experience overall.
We've gutted, demudded, and helped rehabilitate 160 homes and businesses.
I was in law school actually and dropped out.
Didn't like where I was working, so I quit my job.
I come from very fortunate circumstances.
Basic human response. It was natural to just, come here to help.
友達がこちら出身ということで、力になれたなと思ってやってきました。
I wanted to do what I could to help.
Kunsei, who I worked with on highways, who was a retired Japanese gentleman. I was asking him, what do you do if you're retired? Should you be playing like golf or something like that? He's like, no, I get more out of life by staying active and actually contributing to society even after he's done working. And that just kind of inspired me. I was like, that's probably the right way to live.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for having me. I just want to say that for citizen diplomats to be able to walk the bridge, to provide dignity, understanding, cultural awareness is a really wonderful gift, and I encourage all of you to look into a volunteer project in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.